Hey, welcome everyone to this would be our last event in the fall 2020 semester, an unprecedented semester in many ways. I hope everyone is doing okay on this Friday afternoon. Today we will be hosting two of our colleagues, Lingjun and Chung, who will be presenting the projects that they developed with the support, with the assistance of the Language Resource Center, and that were sponsored by our Instructional Innovation Grant. I think that we will start with Chung, correct?
Yes.
Chung? Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll be starting with Chung, who will talk about the project that she developed for her course that revolves around listening comprehension. Rather than talking more about the project, I will go ahead and pass the floor on to her. And by doing that, I will make her a co-host.
Yeah.
So there you go. At any point, if you guys have any questions, please put them in the chat. I will try to go through them after the presentation. Each presentation is about 20 minutes long with a couple minutes left afterwards for Q&A. So without further delay, Chung, it's all yours. Take it away.
Yeah, so good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for Simon for the introduction. So first, I will share my screen. Okay, so because I just started teaching at the Columbia in the fall 2018, and the Vietnamese language development. It is a Vietnamese language program just start in just like now is like the third year. And so I'm so lucky that with the support from the LRC that I can create the audio materials for the first year Vietnamese courses. The first thing I want to say about we have in US and in Vietnam, we have like not many textbooks for the Vietnamese language learning and teaching, but we have some, but most of them is like maybe 10 years ago or 20 years ago that created by the linguistics or with some like teachers. But one part of this textbook, I saw that that is the pronunciation part. That it's just like they introduce very general. It's not like clear and the practice and helping for the student in reading and writing Vietnamese. So let me start with the first part is like the overview for my presentation. Okay, so the first thing like I will talk a little bit more about why I create the audio materials for the first year Vietnamese course. The second one, I will talk about, I cannot move that. The second, I will introduce what is like the typical characteristics of Vietnamese language, that it is like different from other languages. Number three is like I will talk the process that I create the materials, especially for the practicing pronunciation. And after I create and then I do the audios and then I apply and how I evaluate the student progress through the materials that I create. And the last one, I want to share some student feedback on using the audio materials. Okay, so the first thing is like the reason that I just said with you is about like the sorted of Vietnamese language audio materials, especially relating to pronunciation. So for most of the textbook, they just introduce like the general alphabet. They just talk about a little bit vowels, a little bit about the consonant, about the tones, and not many like activities for the practice. But I create the textbook include the one part for the pronunciation guide, and then in every lesson, it is include the pronunciation practice and the listening comprehension. So the second thing is like, I think I want to help students to practice more outside the classroom. So it means even like without helping from me or from others like Vietnamese friends or like families, they can do by themselves. And the other thing is like, I want to increase the teaching and learning efficiency in class. So they can do like in advance at home for the homework, and then we can practice more in the class. Okay, so I will go through what is the Vietnamese language. So I think the Vietnamese language is a Asian languages, but it is in the Southeast Asian. And according to the FSI, the Foreign Services Institute, the Vietnamese language is considered as a difficult language. So it will take about over 1,000 hours to achieve level 3. So level 3 is mean like about like advanced low level, like for the IELTS 1. And the second thing is like Vietnamese also is a tonal language with 6 tones. So as you know, like Chinese have 4 tones, Thai have 5 tones, but Vietnamese we have 6 tones. And especially we have a complex vowel clusters. Yeah, and so for example, you can see the tones here. And if you see like this, is very close for the vowel cluster and the tones. But the tones will decide the meaning of a word. So if the student pronounce not correctly, the meaning of the word will be changed. So that is the very tricky for the student, especially for the English spoken learners. So for example, I will pronounce this sentence for you, mean bạn, ban, bán, bàn, bẩn, bàn. So it means like bạn is a friend and ban is the name of person. Bán is mean to sell. Bàn is table. Bẩn is mean dirty. And bàn is mean a village. So you can see that it's very close to each other, the tones and the vowel clusters. Or there's some is like the example for the cluster, vowel cluster, very close and very confused to the English spoken learners, like tay, tai, or like or an. So that is very, very close. And the last thing that is very typical for the Vietnamese language is like we have 3 region accents or the like dialect. So northern dialect, central dialect, and southern dialect. So I come from the north, and most of heritage students here in America they come from the south. So that is a little bit difficult for us to do like the northern or southern or central dialect. Okay, the next thing is about the tones. So in Vietnamese we have 6 tones. So and the name is different. You can see that they have the symbol for the each tones. So and the student always miss the different mark of this one when they write. So it will change the meaning of the word. So for example, we have like the same vowels, same consonants, but the different tone, and we decide the different meaning of the word. So as an example, I give you, so like ma, 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 ma. So it's the 6 tones in Vietnamese. Yeah. So, and then the meaning you can see is totally different. Yeah. Yeah. And we have, it is a vowel cluster. This is the most tricky part for the student. It's about like 140 vowel clusters. And it's very like easy, like the same. If the student, they cannot listen, they say, oh, I see the same, it's not different. But with this one, the student, if they can recognize the difference of this vowel cluster, they can read every Vietnamese text without understand the meaning. So that is the different thing. Like in English or in other languages, like you read and write is different. But for the Vietnamese, reading and writing is the same. So how you read is mean exactly the same way how you write. Yeah, so that is some like typical like characteristic of Vietnamese language. So it is the way of like we format a word. So that's why we have the initial sound, we have the vowel clusters, and in the vowel cluster, we have the middle sounds, we have the main sound and ending sounds, and the tones. So it's the way how we create a word in Vietnamese. Okay. And the last thing is about like the different with the dialects in Vietnam. So we had northern dialect, central dialect, and southern dialects. So for the northern dialect, we have 6 tones. For the central dialect, often they just put out 5 tones. And for southern dialect, they say five tones. So that is like a little bit confused with some vowel cluster or ending sounds. So this one is like sometimes the student, like especially the heritage students, they can speak Vietnamese, but they don't know exactly how to write. So they confuse between the different vowels or like different vowel clusters. So that is also one like difficulties when I meet with the student here. Okay, so now I will move to the second part, like how I create the practicing pronunciation. So I based on 2 materials, like 2 things. The first one from like according to Hinker say that he said that the pronunciation must be taught contextually and integrated with speaking for the sake of providing communicative purposes and realistic language learning goals. So it means that, like, as you know, teaching pronunciation only sometimes make you and the student feel tired and boring. So how you can help the student to feel that it is more interesting? This means that like you have to integrate it with the contents, or it means in the lesson. And also like Telegraph like offer 8 type of pronunciation exercise teaching materials. So that's number 1 is like phonetic training. The second one is reading aloud. Number 3 is listen and repeat. Number 4, rules and instructions. Number 5 is the rhythm and verse. Number 6, awareness raising activities. Number 7, spelling and dictation. And the last one is the ear training. So based on like this theory, I use like I create a textbook with the Vietnamese Elementary 101 for the fall semester. And here is the content for 10 lesson I do for the fall semester. So you can see the lesson 1 is a guide to pronunciation. And then from the lesson 2 to lesson 10 is a different topic, the very basic topics that for the beginner students. And for the Vietnamese Elementary 102 that I use in for the spring semester, I have the lesson 12 to lesson 19, also the following topic related about ourselves. And then we have the 2 lesson review. So one lesson is 11 in the first textbook, and the second one is lesson 20 is a review. And it is on the kind of the exercise that I create for the pronunciation. The first one is about like I introduce the alphabet phonetic for the student. The second thing is like listen and repeat. Number 3 is like listen and writing, is mean dictation. Number 4 I use is like same or difference. So the student will listen and decide the sound is the same or difference. And it is an exercise for mark the tones. So what is like how to mark the tones, different tone in the word or in the sentences. And the last one is like listening comprehensions. So I use all these exercise in the textbook to help the student to increase their ability in reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And here is some like in the textbook, in my textbook, we have listen and repeat. So the second one is the same or different. So the student will listen and decide it's the same or different sound, and then write down the word that student hear. Number 3 is listen and mark the tones. So for example, I have sentences, so the student have to listen and mark the tone. And the last one is like listening comprehension. So it means like to, it's very simple one, like write the names, write the nationalities, about the age. So they write, it is the one way for like a dictation. So I use this thing is like for the fall semester, fall 2018 for the I think spring 19 and then the fall 19 and then the spring 20. And then so how I evaluate the student progress through these materials. So the first thing I use the quizzes and tests. The second thing is like I have the audio or the video recording from student practice. I also use some apps that the student can practice for the listening, reading, and writing or speaking at the Nino, Padlet, Google Doc, Light, or Blocks. And then especially I design a mini pronunciation project for the last semester for the first year and second year students that who already use the materials for the first year. Okay, so that is some apps that I use. The first thing is the Nino. I think for my first year, I use a lot of Nino for the writing, for the student, like write a paragraph and then they upload it. But later on, I think the students feel that it's a little bit like difficult for them to upload. So I changed to use more Padlet and Flipgrid. And then I also use Block and the Light. So let me show you about this thing. Okay, I will say by this. Okay, so it is the first is the Nino. So you can see the Nino I use in the phone 18. So the student to write very simple like this, like paragraph to talk like interview about themselves or like to talk about like their daily routine. But that is like for 18. But then for the last year, I don't use this one anymore. I use more Padlet. So for example, like this. So it is I use for the first year student, they went to upload the different activities during the day. So they upload from Monday to Sunday. So that is the Padlet for the first year. And then I also use like for example, this one is like for my first year for this semester, like they do introduce about their family members like this. So with the pictures, with the writing, yeah. And it is like for the third year student. So we can see for third year student, I just give some English questions and then I ask them to translate into Vietnamese. And then they will give like discussion about this. So that is the one way we can practice speaking in class and they can prepare like do at home for the writing. So I want to talk about I really like this one because like, so I created is like my project for like a small project for the pronunciation test. So it is I create in March 20. So the first one is like I ask students listen and write down the word they hear. The second one is listen and mark the tones in the sentences. And number 3 is listen and dictation. Number 4 is like I give them a text and I ask them to read aloud and they will record in that. Number 5 is like introduce themselves in Vietnamese. And the last one is like talk about their experience about using the audio materials in learning pronunciation in English. But some students, they prefer to talk in Vietnamese. And I say agree with them. So that is how the project that I create in last semester. And here is the result. You can see that. Yeah, so it is the total is like I have 9 students to join in this project, And it's the only thing that students do from the listen, dictation, or like to reading, and also for the introduce themselves and sharing the experience. And the result is very good. I can say that like for my first year student, 90%, like student got 90% of the accuracy and fluency in reading and reading aloud and introduce themselves in Vietnamese. And then they got 60 to 75% accuracy in writing, that they hear and marking the tones. And the most challenging task for the first year student is the dictation. So we have 4 of 6 students got 30 mistakes, and 2 out of 6 got 20 mistakes in 100 mistakes for this one. Yeah, so that is like the mini project that I used to check like how materials that is effective or not. So now I can share with you one student sharing about how he used this.
First of all, I think pronunciation is definitely the hardest part in Vietnamese. And I think when I tried to practice more, I made some progression, but it's still very hard to pronounce every sound, every tones correctly. And I think it takes time. And as for the second question, for the homework, I use a lot audio to train my pronunciation. I think it's really helpful. And when I listen more, I can gradually understand more and write down the correct spelling. But somehow I still find it a little bit different when I perceive some pronunciation and the actual way, correct way to pronounce it. So I think back to the first point, I think it really needs time to do it, to practice it. And as for the third question, I think this website is really helpful, especially when I start to do the first 2 questions where I have to listen and write it down. And it prompts me to practice a little bit more. I might need to listen more times in order to try to get the sound. But I think if I can continue doing this, could be really helpful. And I believe it, even though after I graduated or finished the class, if I continue in doing these kind of practices, will be really helpful. And I think the most critical part, like Coach Chung said, at the very beginner stage, it's super important to practice pronunciation and understand what people are saying and being able to write it down, even though we never learned the words before. So yeah, I'm looking forward to continue with this pronunciation projects, and I also wish to continue.
Yeah, so that is like the student. It is the student. He's from Taiwan, so he can speak Chinese, and it means like he know about the tones, but he still feel that like the Vietnamese tones or the Vietnamese pronunciation is still very difficult for him. So I think that is like my. I think it is the end for my presentation. So that is like I just give you the project here. I just go through with this, and the outcome here is the result. Like I just talk a little bit to you about that, and so and then the feedback from student, I just like to turn on. Do you see that from one student, like at least one student, he gave like the feedback from how he used like the audio materials for that. So for the references, like I use like for 2 people. So if you want to see more the thing about teaching pronunciation, I think this book is very good. Okay, so it is the end for my presentation, and thank you everyone. And I'm happy to like to share or like to answer any question that you have. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chung, for your presentation. Since it is already 3:30 almost, I think it would be most sensible for us at this point to move on to the next presenter, Lingjun Hu, whom I will make a co-host right now. There you go. So you're the co-host, and in that regard, we will combine all of the Q&A and sort of leave them at the end of this event. Without further delay, I know you have to leave, Lingjun, so please go ahead and show us the project.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Hi, everyone. So this is Lingjun Hu from Chinese department. So today I'm going to talk about the third-year Chinese multimodal supplementary materials project being done with my TA. So me and my TA, we created this collections of multimodal materials for the third-year Chinese. So for our the current textbook, we have lots of themes. For example, DINK, double income, no kids. We have the traffic theme. We have the Starbucks in China, like Beijing architecture, Siam culture, Korea perspective, virtual reality, fast food culture, family issues and empty nesters, these things. So first, I'm going to talk about the background of this project. So our current textbook, this one, is for third-year Chinese. It's actually very well designed. It's very well designed in terms of lexicon, grammar explanations, and worksheets. However, it was compiled about 13, 14 years ago. So, like in China, things happen, rapidly. So some of the topics and contents are out of date, and some are not relevant to current Chinese culture. So due to various reasons, it is kind of hard to change the current textbook. For example, it is too much pain for a program like us, such a big program, to change our current textbook. And actually, the current textbook is well developed and very effective in terms of grammar and vocabulary teaching. So maybe it's necessary and more practical to add some supplementary authentic multi-text, multimodal materials to enrich language learning experience and to make language teaching more interesting and to increase the efficacy of language teaching. And searching and selecting relevant materials is not an easy job. There are many conditions and criteria we need to take into consideration, such as length, relevance, vocabulary load, and grammatical complexity. So the materials that I'm going to use should motivate students' language learning and communication, and at the same time should be with fewer cognitive overload and pressure to students. So thus we have created this collection of authentic materials that are interesting, meaningful, relevant to curriculum, and with updated information. So, and then we have designed various tasks to support our regular lecture classroom teaching and our language practice sessions. So for the resources, all the resources I'm choosing are from local Chinese paper, magazines, and online media such as YouTube, Youku, and those video clips, which are all open public sources. So for example, so we have this reality shows. I guess takes kind of pretty long. Yes, we have reality shows, and we have this news programs, which they have more serious talk about some social issues. We have debates. We have this interviews. We have the podcast. You can listen to the podcast, and then we have news articles and blogs. Let's go back to this. So for example, here, this chapter is about the Starbucks in China. So the original, there was a Starbucks store open in Beijing in Forbidden City, one of the most famous historical relics in China. So it was open in 2001. However, because lots of people are against this idea, so the Starbucks in Forbidden City has to shut down in 2007. So there's no more Starbucks in China now. So that's why I added something to that thing. So the first clip is about the original thing. So people like debate, and this guy, like he's expressing his like idea, like how he against this idea, and he wrote a letter to the president of Starbucks. So they have an interview of that, because like now we don't have Starbucks anymore. But it's very interesting. So nowadays, the Forbidden City is very interesting. Though people are very against that idea, they have the commercial, shops in Forbidden City. Now they have their own, it's called Corner Tower Cafe. So this video is about like introduction of this cafe. And then other than opening a cafe in Forbidden City, they now even have a hot pot store, like in Forbidden City. So this video is about like they interview several customers and their views about this hot pot in Forbidden City. And then of course, there are lots of people who are against this idea again. So they interview some people like from maybe the officials of some like departments, and also they interviewed the director of that of the Forbidden City, like their perspective, why they opened this like very controversial thing. So and then, for example, so we have this sound culture. So sound culture, the original test was about the different functions of text message. Like back in like 13, 14 years ago, because at the time there's no smartphone. So that chapter was talking about the different functions of like a text, MSN. So those kind of the different functions. However, now people don't use that. So everyone's using the smartphone. So I still use the same vocabulary, like the same sentence pattern, grammar patterns from that chapter, but we switch the theme from the text message to the smartphone culture. So for example, so we have include like this, it's called like this how younger generation, their perspective towards this culture. So there are two videos. One is from Lun China, like the high schoolers from Lun China, their thoughts on the impact of this stamp culture and however, and then the second one is from Taiwan, from students from high school from Taiwan, their views about this stamp culture and their life, how their life impacted. And then, for example, we have the theme called fast food culture, or fast food dating, actually. So that chapter is talking about like the speedy dating, like 8 minutes dating. It's amazing we still have that in China. However, students kind of, for our students, it's totally new for them. They have no idea of that, what's going on there. So they're very popular movie. And then like some of the things are actually about that exact 8 minutes. So I asked my TA to cut it and then edit it. So it gives students a more vivid representation of that dating. And then we have a more from a different, so this is more entertaining, right? And then this, we have a more serious news report, like how like in Shanghai, people are doing this thing. And then other than this 8 minutes dating, I expand the theme to a more popular, it's called If You Are the One. It's a very, very popular reality TV dating program in China. It not only tells about dating culture, but introduce other social issues. So these are the sources of our project. And now as for how we select, so there are tons of materials out there, but how we select that. Okay, so when choose those materials, so basically like for me, so for each theme, I'm trying to collect as more as possible. Like for each theme, I try to find materials, whether it's text form or like audio or video or whatever. It better have the multi-perspective, like from different perspective to see a issue, and multi-genres, for example, like informal, formal, colloquial, written, and then multimedias. So as I showed just now, so for example, for news, I'll try to find resources like from newspaper, like the text newspaper, and then the TV news. And then try to find something from movie and some self-media, which is very popular now. And then we have TV talk shows and reality shows. Those are all my like searching area. And also like for the articles, sometimes like if for higher level students, maybe some articles it's too long for them to understand, but I'll try to find some like article abstract, which is short, and I think it's easier for them to understand. So before we just providing the multimodal resources to the students, we need to screen tons of articles or videos to make sure they're appropriate to students' current language level. And then we need to select carefully and modify or edit those materials, since some of the resources are not comprehensible or learnable for the students due to their limited proficiency level. And then for the, like if it's article or news, my criteria is like for the content. So of course the content should be related to the textbook themes. So 50% of the vocabulary should be overlapping with the theme in that chapter in textbook. So if basically I want students to read it without any help. However, for some of the vocabulary that students they still cannot figure out by guessing like from the context, I will just list some vocabulary explanation here. So for other than the vocabulary, so sometimes we have to replace the complex structures and obscure vocabularies into easier and comprehensible ones, but make sure to keep them as original and authentic as possible. So for the video screen, so we have lots of videos, many of them very interesting and related to our themes. However, like some of them, like they have too much information. They have this information overloading concern. And then sometimes we're thinking for the video, we're choosing, should we have subtitles or not? And then sometimes like the speaker speaks too fast, and then we probably have to edit it to make it a little bit slower, but still sounds natural. And if the video is too long, of course, we need to cut it and edit it. So when we are selecting this materials, so we are thinking so whether they are effective and teachable. If they are interesting, whatever, but if they're not effective or teachable, we cannot use that. And for the length of those videos, so if I'm going to present those videos in class, I usually will keep it like to 3 to 4 minutes, no more than 4 minutes in class. And for the video, sometimes like if there are too many new words, I will provide some like words glossary if necessary to give students some scaffolding before they watch the video. Otherwise, they will feel too frustrated. And then we use this video. I should think like, is that more effective? Is this video more effective than PowerPoint? Is that more effective with just pictures or audios? Because it takes such a long time to look for it and such a long time to present it to students. And if we find something good, a piece, like a precious piece, so can we use it more than once? Can we recycle it? So now, yeah. So after we have everything, so we have created lesson plans with various tasks for students to use in class. And some adjustments and changes are also needed along with the teaching. So let's see, I'm going to show some examples. So for example, okay, so we have the empty nester, that theme. So here's the Sorry, that's the advertisement.
Hardware asset lifecycle automation is included in the parachute.
So we have this show, which is just talking about their aging parents. However, this is kind of long. It's like about 50 minutes. So so this is the lesson plan. Okay, so lesson plan based on that piece of material. So of course I read it in Chinese, but because I'm going to present it, so I add some English right here. So the topic chosen from the current textbook is called Always Go Home and See, Empty Nest Adders. And this is the one I showed you just now, is the original source. It's one episode of a Chinese TV show called Talks of Youth Around the World. And so we list the title, it's the duration of the whole thing and the date of that source, and it does have Chinese subtitles. So we modified the materials. So we have, we added into 2 clips. Clip A, it's about from 4:23 to 4, it's like just 30 seconds. And clip B, which is from 5 to 13. So it's kind of like, looks like long, but we cut it into different pieces. We also abstract a short paragraph from clip A as piece of supplementary text. So the design task 1 is like, will you send your parents to nursing home? So we are going to use, so by the way, this lesson plan is for me and also for my TA, because the TAs, we have TAs like every 1 or 2 years, we'll have like new TAs. So we want to train them, so kind of like a training. So because they have their own way, or maybe they're not familiar of like how to use this materials effectively. So this is very detailed. It's very detailed. So give them a reference if they are going to use that. So there's a modified, we're going to use text A and clip A. And the content of this text and clip A is about a little girl whose name is Xiaowen. Her story, like she's in Beijing, but she's telling something about her mom, whether she want to live with her mom and whether she want to send her mom to a nursing house. So the duration listed here. So for our predicted outcome is that after viewing this video, students can review the learned vocabularies and patterns related to aging issues. We can also review and expand knowledge regarding aging issues in China. So it's a kind of a listening comprehension, it's also a reading comprehension. It also asks them to express their opinions of aging issues of Xiaowen and themselves. So the procedure is like step 1, students take a look at the following questions. Number 1, like, what does Xiaowen worry about? And do you have similar worries like Xiaowen? And do you agree or disagree with sending parents to nursing house when they are old, and why? Then with these questions, students watch clip A with those questions. So that's the thing. So every year we have different students. So sometimes the students they are quite advanced. So we just ask them to watch the video. Probably they can get the answer from that. But sometimes the students are kind of slow, so they probably cannot catch the meaning just by watching the video. So we have this text parts. I don't want them to feel like they're left behind or like they know nothing about that video. So we give them this for some slow students. So they read this text, which is the same as the video clip A, and then they answer the question 1 and question 2 independently, and then they discuss the question 3 in pairs, and then present their conclusion to the class. So that's task 1. So again, so this is a lesson plan. Like I just give what I thought. So other teachers or TA, they can choose whatever they want. So they don't need to follow that, but just give them some examples that I design. You can use all of them. You can use just part of that. You can also make some modifications. So this task B, will you send your parents to nursing homes? So we're going to use clip B. This clip B is to show students what other young people think about this issue. So in this video, there are 11 representatives from 11 different countries talking about their opinions on this aging issues. So this duration is about 9 minutes, but as I said, there are representatives from 11 countries. So each one's talking will be like no more than 1 minute. So it's basically a 1 minute like that. So I'm not going to repeat this part. And then, so we will provide a notes. So students may use the questions listed below for note taking while watching the video. So the question is, does the representative approve or disapprove sending their parents to nursing house? And what's their reasons? And we have this note-taking sheets, like this is the representative from Canada, from UK, Korea. And then students watch this clip B and take notes. And step 3, students share their thoughts one by one, like which represents idea you agree with and explain why. And after all this kind of exercises, like students can debate, right? Can debate like based on this video watching. And then after this discussion, students can write an essay based on this video. And also like for the Ding family, so Ding family, so I found this very interesting article. It's in 2018. So they interviewed 4 women who belong to the first generation of like Ding in China. They asked them whether they regret choosing this like Ding, not having kids. Very interesting and lots of detailed examples. However, it's too long. So I kind of added it. So I just choose. I cut it like to several pieces, and I provide some of the glossary, like students cannot guess from the context. So usually I add glossary as less as possible to encourage students to find meaning from a context by themselves. However, if it's used for classroom teaching, I would include notes for those words whose meaning cannot be deducted from the context. And I cut this because it's too long. So I cut it to several pieces and assign students with different parts. So each one will be just reading one part, and after reading their own piece, they can report their piece to their class. So the whole class can get an idea of what's going on of this whole articles. And so sometimes I ask them to read at home. It depends. You can ask them to read at home, or you can ask them to read it in class. And they need to complete some exercises based on this reading. And then in the coming class, and we're going to discuss about the contents. And also reading this article kind of provide some examples, insights, and vocabulary of the Ding family, so which will be helpful to write their essay. Okay, so let me see. And then, so yeah, basically it's usually we'll show students this video, and then we have this lesson plan. Most of the lesson plans are in Chinese because we don't need English for that. Am I using too much time? Right, and sometimes we also include the student version. So this is for the teacher. And then we have students version, which is of course shorter. Students handout. Again, I don't put English there, just for your reference. And then just in case students forgot who is who, because to them they look very similar, so I sometimes list the picture for them. It's easier for them to recall who's who and who's opinion about. Yeah. So this COVID thing actually we're a little bit late behind of this, so we haven't done any assessment of that. So hopefully, like in the coming semesters, to evaluate this. So Zhongqi asked a question. Simon, can I read that question? Isn't Zhongqi have a question for me?
Yes. If I'm not sure. Are you finished with your presentation?
Yes, I can finish that now. So I see Zhongqi has a question.
Okay. So yeah, thank you for the presentation. We just formally conclude the presentation portion of this hour-long event. We did a few minutes for a couple of questions. There's already a question in the chat, like you pointed out, about Zhongxi. Let me read it out and then and I'll let you respond to it, okay? So Zhongxi's question is as follows. Is this website open to our students only? And then he suggests that there are multiple classes using the same textbook as the one presented, and that it would be useful for other students to have access to it as well.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yes, I can share this with other students because we are using the same textbook. So because you see we have different layers, right? The first layer is the theme. The second layer is the video or article or any podcast. And the third layer is actually for teacher. So maybe I won't show that third layer, right? The third layer is for like a teacher's lesson plan. Maybe I'll just hide that part and show the first layer and the second layer to students. So it's so students can click on everything they're interested. So maybe the other teacher already showed them in class, but then if they don't have enough time to cover that in class, or they have more interest to discover more, of course, you can just click on that theme and then take a look of that. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Zhangxi, for the question. Just a reminder that this is also the time to ask questions to Chung. So if you have any, we do have a couple of minutes to entertain that. So feel free to take the floor if there's anything you'd like to contribute. Is there a URL for Lingjun's project?
Yes, there's a URL, and this is like a preliminary stage. So we haven't, complete everything. Yes, we do have a URL. Yes, Chris.
Lingjun, if you don't mind, I will check back in or check with you afterwards, maybe on Monday, so that we can talk about the presentation itself, and then also about the website. I have a few questions.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, great. Anyone else? Going once. Feel free to unmute yourselves if there's anything you'd like to contribute.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
For Chung. And thank you very much, both of you. Very inspiring presentations. I was just wondering too how you go about grading the pronunciation exercises. Is this done automatically on the website? And if so, how do you program?
Yeah, it is like thank you for your question. That also very difficult for me to grading for the pronunciation part, because like you can see that in Vietnamese we have the vowel mark and the tone marks. So sometimes the student, they just miss like one or two vowels mark or tone marks. So how I can give them, for example, I say like, okay, for the first year I can give like maybe 3 mistake is like 1. So I win to count them. So it is like always reminds to let students about remember the vowel mark. So when you write a word, remember the vowel mark is a hook or like the half moon or the head or the tone with the tones. So we practice every day in class, and then for the grading, I also tell students very clearly how I grade for the pronunciation mistakes. Yeah. Yeah, and I think in the light apps, they have the grading too.
Okay.
Yes.
Actually, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Actually what I wanted to know.